All right, time to let it rip this morning. Racial tensions into East Texas over a case involving a jailed teenager.
Hundreds of people marched in Paris, Texas on Tuesday demanding the release of Shaquandra Cotton. She's been in jail for about a year for shoving a teacher's aide at her high school. The civil rights activists say the sentence is too harsh and that the same judge gave a white 14-year-old arsonist probation. Some of the residents there insist that race relations are just fine.
There has been in the past, you know, and I went through riots here in high school, but I have so many black friends right now that are precious, and of course I have white friends that are precious.
This has been a long time coming, but I knew a change was going to come, and I'm so glad it's here.
Well, Cotton was 15 years old when she was convicted last March. She is scheduled to remain at that facility until she meets state rehabilitation standards or reaches her 21st birthday.
Allison and Bob joining us now to talk more about this. And, you know, there's two issues here. There's obviously the issue that you see on the surface, which is this a black-white issue when it comes to the sentences? Because, of course, a white teenager was sentenced to probation for what appears to be a far more serious crime. But there's a bigger story as well when it comes to the Texas Youth Commission and all the problems that they have found there. So, Bob, Allison, welcome you to join in. Bob, do you want to start?
Well, sure. I think there's also the issue of an appropriate penalty for something that someone did. This girl at the age of 14 apparently got into a ruckus with a teacher's aide and got sentenced to 7 years, even though that person was not injured seriously. She had no prior arrest record, and she's put away for 7 years into the juvenile system, which, as you say, Steve, there are questions about that in and of itself. I kind of want to separate that as well as the race issue, which also may be at play here. But if you look at that, 7 years for shoving somebody seems excessive. I don't care what race you are. It seems like it's going too far in this case, especially for a kid that you want to educate.
Right. And, you know, Bob, the judge in this case, though, says, and I'm just you know, telling you what the judge said. The judge says that he had a couple of options. Send the girl back to her mother. He said, but from the witnesses' testimony during this case, those witnesses said the mother was not a good influence, that this was not a good place to put this young lady. And so after hearing from those witnesses, made a determination that the best place for this 15-year-old was to send her to this other facility, and said that, you know, that was the main reason that he made that decision.
Yeah, this is, I mean, the whole story is just ridiculous, but just to shed a little more light on how this system works, that judge also said that about 90% of the teen offenders that get put into the Texas Youth Commission are sentenced to these indeterminate length sentences. And he basically says, I'm just going to send you there. If you're 14 years old, you could be there up until the age of your 21, or until the system decides that you pass these standards to get back into society. Now, that is where a lot of people say these problems are, because this particular girl, Shaquandra, was found with contraband in her cell living area and was sentenced to extra time, or said she'd be held for that. The contraband, she had an extra pair of socks. You know, so this is ridiculous.
No, I know. And with one of those pieces of garments, you should know that this is still a 14-year-old child. The child has tried to kill herself 3 times in her cell, one by wrapping around a shirt around her neck to strangle herself. This is the mental state that this person has put in. I don't even know where to start on this. I'm glad you didn't come to me right away, because I've been sitting here listening to everything everyone's been saying. To speak to the mother, this mother has led protest outside of this very school, because this school has been under investigation by the U.S. Department of Education for treating black and white students differently. Is this person a bad influence? Sure. In a town that perhaps lets this go on time after time. This school, once again, it's, I think, 40%. It's pretty equally divided as far as race goes, but there have been charges time and time again against the school itself. Now, the school, of course, is different from the Justice Department. So talking about the judge who just months before, again, sentenced that other child to probation. And also, this is the same town. I was reading another case, 19-year-old person convicted of criminally negligent homicide by killing a 50-year-old black woman and her 3-year-old grandson with his truck. What did he get? Probation, and he has to send a Christmas card to the family of the victim. I think that there's really nothing to say on this. We're all on the same page. There's got to be an issue here. What is the only dividing issue? It happens to be race in a town that does not have a good track record.
Look, I will say, though, that the prosecutors did say that they offered a plea agreement to this young lady and her mother, which would have busted it down from a felony to a misdemeanor and given her 2 years probation, and they said, no thanks.
She shoved someone.
But
you're going to get this child in the system for shoving someone? I think that they expected that they would be fair, and it just wasn't.
And I think that there is The only problem that might be here on their part is the defiance. And this, again, I go back to this. You're right, Allison.
That's not
absolutely.
illegal.
The first thing is just ridiculous that this whole thing would start with what essentially was a shoving match because she arrived at school too early and wanted to get in the building, and the woman who was the hall monitor said you couldn't do it. But what it comes down to, what Gavir is saying, apparently what they're saying is through this system, they told her if she admitted to this and pled guilty, they would let her go. And she said, I didn't do it. Exactly.
She didn't feel like she should. So she went out on a limb thinking that she would get justice, and she got 7 years.
But this is what I'm saying, Allison. This is a problem with this system as well.
Right.
Why do they keep her there saying that we're going to keep you here until you admit to this? I mean, it's so childish in the way they're acting.
Exactly.
And one more thing, I know we got to go, but just to show you the ridiculousness of this agency, the governor's office in Texas put a special investigation into this youth commission, and they found out over 100 employees of the youth agency had felony arrests or convictions themselves.
Right.
More than 400 more had misdemeanor arrests or charges. So they got a big mess on their hands
clearly
down
they've
there.
got a problem with the system, but I will again say that they offered this young lady a plea deal. She said no thanks. And we don't know how bad that shove was. Were you there?
How bad could it be? She wasn't seriously injured. 7 years.
You know, we weren't there. All right, that's all I'm going to say.
7 years.
All right, you can blog about it because, you know, clearly we have a lot to say about it. Maybe you do too. So send your thoughts to myfoxdc.com. Click on the blogs tab and let us know what you think about all of this. We'll be right back.